K-pop, a Pandora box of the music industry, has never failed to surprise and annoy people with a bunch of weird stuff. While there are such things that ironically help idols garner lots of love, recognition, and money in a short span of time, some, including the idols themselves, have recently realized how annoying these habits of K-pop stans are. Number 1. Idols are objectified and labeled as the nation's lovers, thus not allowed to have feelings and get into any romantic relationships. As LE SSERAFIM's Ha Yoonjin once said, one of her biggest ambitions was to change the idol industry.
I want to change the idol industry.
And most recently, Jackson Wang also said that he had enough of the culture where fans were possessing and obsessing with K-pop celebrities. The problem of idols being labeled as the nation's lover and framed to acting in certain ways to live up to the title is extremely dire. While the K-pop industry is originally created to bring good music to the world, and in there, idols are the means to deliver those pretty pieces of art, everything has been twisted to the point that such nature is completely changed. Now, when talking of idols, most K-pop stans immediately connect them with a type of nation's lover, a type of object for fans to romanticize their boring life, and a material for them to put into fantasies where they and the idols would have a perfect romantic relationship. While this sounds sickening and cringy, it's actually so normalized in K-pop that many just treat it like a norm that idols must obey. This practice even impacts the way the industry runs and how the media revolves around it, leading to the fact that many outlets treat idols as dating as the hottest topic in town. In fact, dating news of idols often receives so much attention that it is rumored such topics are frequently used to cover up more consequential scandals related to economy and politics in South Korea. With just one search away, you can already see piles of evidence leading up to this assumption. For example, the way Heechul and Momo's dating news was released at the exact same time as the incident of President Moon Jae-in in 2019, and how the relationship between GD and Jennie, who were said to have already been dating for a while, was suddenly exposed at the time when the national bullying scandals that involved all big names of K-pop in 2021 blew up. While things might be coincidental and not causative, you can still see how the norm of fans labeling and objectifying idols to their fanciful lovers has impacted the way many industries function and make money. While the benefits are undeniable because at the end of the day, such an annoying habit of K-pop fans still helps many people put bread on the table, it ironically makes idols, aka the protagonists of everything, suffer a lot. If a celebrity wants to amount to great successes that can compensate for their blood, sweat, and tears throughout their trainee years, they mustn't get into any kind of romantic relationship and should refrain from interacting much with idols of the opposite gender. Basically, they must live like a soulless robot whose first and foremost mission in life is to keep fans entertained, though it might be at their mental wellness's expense. So, what happens if people go against these possessive thoughts of people to chase the love of their life? Well, obviously, they would be mercilessly bashed, drastically boycotted, and sometimes constantly bombarded with death threats just for having feelings like a normal person. For example, when Dispatch released news about Jennie and Kai's relationship, Jennie was immediately stoned, called out for focusing too much on dating rather than making music, and even receiving death threats. Or later, when Jennie was reported to be seeing V, many also came to her Instagram to drop vomiting and shit emojis, and accused her of seducing V with an ulterior motive, and as more pictures of their relationship were leaked, she even received death threats, which again is all because she loved a man. Or in the case of EXO's Chen, he was boycotted by his own fans right off the bat after learning about his marriage. Despite the attempt to re-enter the music industry, Chen failed to make it to the top 100 of most charts, couldn't even get into Melon, the biggest streaming platform in South Korea, and within 1 hour, he only got 871 likes on the site. Compared to the era when his relationship wasn't exposed, Chen's peak reputation once helped him have up to 900,000 likes in a short span of time. Besides having to keep their natural emotions contained, idols also have to put up with another aftermath of fans' obsession with labeling and objectifying them as lovers, witnessing others use them as materials in sickening romantic fanfics yet can do nothing about it. Of course, there are many types of fanfics, but until now, whenever talking about fanfics, most will immediately relate the term to RPF, or real person fiction, which involves sensual activities between idols with their members or idols with fans. While this culture has been here to stay since K-pop Gen 1, K-pop stars have still felt resentment and secondhand embarrassment when reading such delusional stories. For example, back in the day, Chesky's leader Eun Jae-won once outright expressed his irritation, saying after reading fanfics about him and other members, he was so ashamed and discomfited that he couldn't see into the eyes of the other members. Even BTS's V, who is supposed to be super duper cautious in every word because of the massive influence he has on people, still decided to voice his unhappy opinions about fanfics, saying people should have come out of their imagination as it wasn't good to have such a delusion as to seeing BTS's members romantically close to one another. Number 2. Victimizing idols while the idols are actually living the most flamboyant life. Before talking about this, can you answer the question of why many young people give up on lots of things and agree to spend most of their youth in exhaustive practice rooms to become idols? Well, needless to think, things obviously boil down to how people can literally flip their life to a new page, leading the flashiest life and always being showered in money and attention when managing to become one of the top names of K-pop. In fact, even B-level idols nowadays can already make a decent amount of money thanks to the chances to increase coverage on various newly born social platforms, but somehow, regardless of all these things, many K-pop fans have still frequently victimized their idols, saying they were being tortured by their management agencies in one way or another, and asking the companies to stop mistreating them. The ridiculous trend where fans kept accusing entertainment corporations of abusing their artists went so out of hand that there was a period in K-pop, mainly in the 2020 to 2022 phase, one of the most talked about topics had the keyword mistreatment. Ironically, in most cases, while fans were screaming at the top of their lungs to ask for better treatment for their idols, the idols were enjoying themselves at the most flamboyant parties, having money flown into their bank account every minute, always getting hands on the trendiest and fanciest designer duds, and probably even having a better work-life balance than most fans. Needless to look for any far-off examples, Blackpink remains the epitome of this ridiculous discussion. And even until now, when the members have just returned to the race after 2 years resting, fans still found holes to accuse YG Entertainment of mistreating the girls. When Blackpink had just debuted and had only one comeback every year, it was understandable for Blinks to complain that YG Entertainment was holding back the girls regarding their developing career, as all the members proved themselves extremely talented factors of the K-pop industry. However, as time passed and it later turned out that YG Entertainment limited the number of Blackpink's comeback yearly to keep them relevant longer than their peers, which is easily through the fact that individual brand values of all members were still on the top. On the same par with the most famous Gen 4 idols, Blinks somehow still saw flaws in the way YG Entertainment managed Blackpink and accused them of mistreating the girls. For example, after Blackpink finished their tour, admitted themselves to be completely drained and wanted nothing but a long break, Blinks still stoned YG Entertainment for not investing in the girls' career. Ironically, even after seeing the members, especially Jennie and Rosé, flying to the most flamboyant parties in Hollywood, visiting various countries, and only occasionally attending fashion events to keep the heat of their reputation, many Blinks still acted like Blackpink were suffering and they only dragged themselves to those entertaining places because YG Entertainment refused to give them jobs. Number 3. Turn every idol's statement into cultural appropriation accusations. As K-pop's reputation rapidly branches out to every single corner of the world, which is obviously synonymous with idols having their higher chances of making more money thanks to the wider exposure, this also ironically puts them under way stricter and more confusing public scrutiny, because one action may be appropriate for one culture but extremely offensive in others. The thing is, while such a struggle for idols of the new generations is apparent, and usually idols most of whom have spent years in the practice rooms doing the same arduous things with a single hope of living a better life down the road, also try their best to keep a squeaky clean life, many K-pop stans still try to find faults in everything the idols say, to accuse them of offending and disrespecting certain cultures. Needless to travel too far to the past, most recently, the case of New Jeans' Danielle has already depicted perfectly every ridiculous criteria the public imposes on idols when it comes to their statements, though the messages obviously stem from good wills. Things all started when Danielle congratulated her Asian fans on having a happy Lunar New Year, but instead of writing Lunar, she used Chinese New Year instead. Even now, I myself can't deny writing Chinese New Year is a bit too narrow-minded of Danielle, since this is the time not only China but many Asian countries also mark a new beginning. Basically, as a girl who has already harbored the dream of becoming an idol for years, and eventually managed to debut under a relatively influential agency like Adore, Danielle should have prepared herself better with historical knowledge since idols are literally perfect living goddesses, and she should live up to this image. However, seeing people calling her a brainless idol and mercilessly bashed her for weeks, and in some Asian countries like Vietnam, netizens even racistically called her a ni hao girl to make fun of her wishing people a happy Lunar New Year, is still unacceptable for me because of various reasons. First, everything she did stemmed from mere goodwill, and had netizens looked deep into her wishes, they should have seen that Danielle not only put efforts into caring and sharing happiness with fans, but also indirectly promoted the Asian tradition to Western fans. Second, as a girl born and raised in the West and just came to South Korea a few years ago, people couldn't expect her to know every little thing about Asian cultures, and the extremely thin boundaries between offensive and non-offensive things in different Asian countries that many natives aren't even aware of. So why do you think people still let these annoying things happen even though the nuisances clearly outweigh the perks? Comment down below to share your thoughts with us. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe to BeBoss TV for more interesting K-pop content. Thank you for watching!